Hey guys, Brian at Frontier. Just wanted to give you a little overview of electrical connectors and the standard types of electrical connectors that are available and kind of what the differences are, just a brief overview. So the standard one is going to be your regular crimp style connector. Now these are a nylon insulated, and the way you can tell they're nylon insulated is the insulation material is kind of translucent. You can see through it a little bit. Now if you have the ones that are solid colored and you can't see through them, those are PVC. We don't even offer those because you do not want to use a PVC connector. The reason you don't want to use a PVC connector is because inside, the metal piece that crimps inside is literally in two separate halves. So, and there's nothing to join the two halves. So when you crimp one of those, if you don't crimp it in the right place, it will literally only crimp one side of it down and the other side will be up. So if any of you've ever used like the cheap ones from, wherever you get them, if you crimp it and then you can immediately pull the wire right back out, that's because maybe you got it in the wrong spot and you only crimped one half of it. So in order for a PVC one to work correctly, you have to literally get it crimped right on that line to get it to work correctly. And if you're up underneath a dash somewhere or somewhere it's hard to get to, sometimes you're lucky to even get your crimpers on the connector, much less try to make sure the connector is in exactly the right orientation. So that's why the cheapest ones we sell are the nylon style. Not that it's a cheap connector, but this is the best one you can get that's a non-shrink or non-solder style connector. And this one is actually a solid piece because it's brazed. So wherever you crimp this, it gives you an even crimp all the way around, which is a huge plus over your standard cheap PVC stuff that's a solid color that you can't see through. So nylon is definitely the way to go on a crimp only style connector. They're great connectors. That's what is one of the very popular styles out there, but that's why we use the nylon, and that's what the benefit of the nylon is, as well as the insulation material is a higher temperature, more corrosion resistant, whatnot. But that's the main difference between nylon and PVC. Then you step up one into the crimp and shrink style connector, and this crimp and shrink style, you use it just like the nylon. You put your a wire on each side, crimp it, but then after you get your wires crimped, you actually heat shrink this, and there's adhesive inside the heat shrink area. So then you have a mechanical connection by crimping it, and then once you heat shrink the wire, then you have an adhesive connection too, so the wire can't pull out. That does a couple things for you. One, it gives you the two bonds, and then it doesn't allow any corrosion, any outside elements to get down in that connector. So it keeps the corrosion out of your connector, keeps your connection clean longer. It's just a much more durable connection. These are very popular. This is probably our best seller right here. This style of connector, use them on trash trucks, water trucks, heavy equipment. A lot of hot rod guys use them. This is probably our most versatile connector. Guys that don't want to get into soldering their wires and sliding heat shrink tubing over it. Guys that don't want to get into that, this is a great connector, and it gives you a very good connection. The next step you can go to is our complete solder shrink connector. So this one, there's literally a solder ring inside of here. So you slide a wire through each direction so the wires overlap each other, and then you just heat this up and shrink it like you do the heat shrink connector, but you don't actually crimp this. So you just heat it until the solder melts. The solder melts in the wires, and then once it cools off, then you have an actual soldered connection, and you still have the benefit of the heat shrink as well, because you have the adhesive of the heat shrink in here as well. So that's another step of connector that you can go to. Great connector. It just depends on what you want to do. We have something from the nylon all the way to the solder shrink. So it depends on what your level of confidence is, what you like. Some guys really like only the solder shrink. Some guys really only like the crimp and shrink. Some guys only want to use the nylon, just crimp only. My personal preference is the crimp and shrink. That's my personal preference. So all this stuff is available on our website, frontiershopsupplies.com. Go check it out. If you go to our video page, there is some videos on how to use each one of these specifically as well. Thanks, guys.